Trouble is, we're always happy. All you have to be is just a little off center and you're always happy.
If we could have a full subdivision of Dick and Larry's, we'll take it.
That would be scary. Yeah.
We'd have to have a bigger city office to accommodate everything that wants to be used.
Yeah, that's true.
All righty, we'll get started. It's a little after 5, and we'll see if anybody else trickles in. Thank you for coming to this month's Power Board meeting. Got a little bit of a crowd today, but yeah, we'll get started. So first, has everyone had a chance? Everyone got the emails for today's meetings and all the papers. Let's start then. Oh, what? Did you raise your hand? Oh, sorry. Okay, I just saw movement. So we'll start. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Everyone have a chance? Is there any questions about it? Oh.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I'll
Okay.
second.
So Dick made the motion, Mark seconded. Dick, will you start us on the vote?
Saunders, aye.
Mark?
Hauser, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the minutes from last month. So everyone have a chance to look through those, and any questions, comments, changes, notes? No? Okay, look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes from last month.
And I'll second.
So Mark first, Dick second. Mark, do you want to start us on a vote?
Hauser, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. Okay, new business is item number 3. And I assume, it doesn't say, but I assume we turn that over to Rick.
Have Rachel do it.
Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty exciting venture or improvement that we'll be making to the system. AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. I think all of you are on the water AMI system that they've implemented. I don't know how much you've engaged with their app and website, but I know there's some capabilities there. So basically, what this system would do is replace our existing drive-by meter reading system, but it has a lot more capabilities that our current system doesn't have. And I listed in these bullet points. Oh, sorry. Can you bring that up, or do I got to do it again, Dave? Okay, sorry about that. And these are just some of the major points. It will allow for different type of rate structures that we aren't necessarily contemplating doing them immediately, but I really think like the time of use rate structures aren't that far out, and I think they'll become more and more common in the industry, as we're basically, as a city, a utility, we're on an hourly time of use rate that sometimes we don't know what the rate is, so it's kind of a fun adventure. But this would allow us to send some time signals to the customers that this period of time is more expensive than say early morning or something like that. And so this metering system would allow you to do that. Potentially you could even do a prepay where customers could put $100 on their account, and when the $100 come up, the meter would just disconnect them. And some utilities have used that for those that are consistently behind on their bills. And so it'd be like filling up your gas tank in your car. You can't drive unless you have gas in your car. Other rate options that are less common are residential demand rates, all kinds of things that would open up the capabilities. It's a fixed base meter reading system, meaning we don't have to send somebody driving around. And basically you can get reads, I'd anticipate at least once a day, like each night or whatever we set it up. So the customer would be able to actually see what they're using on a daily basis if they pay attention or choose to do that. We plan on implementing a customer, I call it an e-portal, basically an app that they could see what their usage is doing, so they could at least not find out when they get their bill, you know, after the fact. It would be more real time, that they'd be able to see what their consumption is doing. Almost all the meters will have, and I alluded to that before, the built-in disconnects. So for shutoffs for non-payment, that actually would be handled just in the office here. They develop a list of those that are needing to be shut off, and basically you push a button and has a little switch in the meter that basically disconnects them. And then when they call in, pay their bill, they can send a signal out and it'll reconnect, and we don't have to send somebody out. And similar to that, we call it read and rolls. When somebody's house changes hands, you have to go get a meter reading, the end reading for the one customer and the start reading for the other. Again, that could all be done remotely with this system. It has the ability to provide data to help with system analysis, transformer loading, which will help in system planning, and also can provide some notifications on outages and where that outage may be occurring. If you have obviously a group of meters in one area, it helps pinpoint where the problem might be. So there's other capabilities. I know Dick sat through 2 days of presentations from the 4 vendors. I don't know if you want to share any thoughts or insights from kind of a customer's perspective.
Other than all 4 presenters basically covered, I think, the needs that we had, just right. That it was differences in the way that they were going to implement their systems. And it looks like the lowest bid turned out to be the one I thought was it appeared to be more orientated towards what we were looking for, but.
Correct.
So
we'll get into that in a little more detail, but yeah, as Dick said, we had 4 vendors: Aclara, Eaton, Honeywell / Wesco, and Tantalus were the 4 vendors that responded to the RFP. And I think any of the systems would work. And what we did through the evaluation process, and it's been going on, I think the bids were due back in like August. And then we had the on-site interviews in November, and with Mike leaving, kind of delayed some things. So it's taken a little bit of time to get to this point. But there was 5 of us that evaluated and we'll look at that. It wasn't just based on pricing. Capabilities, their presentations, I mean, to be quite frank, some presentations were better than others and were more comprehensive. Each of the vendors also offered installation services where they would bring a crew in and change all the meters out. We're recommending that we probably do it at a little slower pace and do the meter change outs with our own crews. One advantage of that is we will have a team, we'll probably send them out in 2s, would visit basically every meter site. That way they can see identify any other problems. they'll have a different perspective than an outside contractor that's just coming in, set the meter, move on, set the meter, move on. And it will also, I know when the water did theirs, there was some challenges on the data entry because they were coming in so fast, and what some of these proposals were even faster than that. And so there's a data entry side of this to set up the new meters in the system and all that. So I think it'll be, if we can do it with our in-house crews, I think overall we're going to be in a better position. Basically, the recommended supplier was Aclara for just under 2 million. You can see the amount there, and that includes the meters, the communication. They call them data collection units or DCUs. That we'll put in. Most of them will be in our substations. That will be the head end that talks to the meters in that area, and then it will be transported back to here on the city's fiber. Okay, so Todd's on with us. And so this again was all in your packet. This spreadsheet's obviously geared to the dollar amount. And as Dick mentioned, it turned out that the one that was evaluated overall was also the low bidder. And so this is the 1,952,390.54. I always like the cents on a $2 million bid, but that's how it works out. They were also low if we were to elect to have them do the meter change out. They were the lowest on that as well. Their annual fees, which is typical of this kind of software. Aclara was the second lowest by about $9,000, with the high being, I think it was Honeywell at 71. So we did do a little extrapolation on that and say, well, if we included 10 years of those annual fees, does it change the position of things? And it didn't. Again, Aclara ended up being the low cost on that. Aclara does a little different communication. They call it a point-to-point, where the data collection unit talks direct to each meter. The other three vendors was a mesh that basically they'd go so far, so your meter would talk to your meter, which would talk to your meter, which would eventually get back. Most of them claim they can do it within 2 hops, meaning from 2 meters to get to the head end. And again, they all would meet our needs. Aclara has more meters available with the remote disconnect. The others are working on it, a higher amperage rating. And their lead times were kind of in the middle of the pack. The one thing that Tantalus can do that the others couldn't is they could read our existing meters, so you wouldn't have to change all meters, but you don't have all the capabilities if you do that approach. So then we got the bids. We did a in-person, and they each had 2 to 3 hours to present their case over a 2-day period. And we had this long criteria here of different metrics and what their weighting was. And this was in the RFP. They knew that going in. And so this is the detail on how each of the 5 reviewers reviewed Aclara and in your packet you had eaten and so forth. So the summary, in the end, the actual number I don't think matters as long as each person was consistent, as they looked at the different criteria. And if you look at this summary, all 5 of the reviewers scored Aclara as the best way to go. 2 through 4 was a mixed bag between the other 3, if you look at each one individually. So that's kind of a quick and dirty. Some of the proposals were, one proposal was relatively short, probably 30 or 40 pages, and some were several hundred pages. So it took a little bit to kind of sort it and kind of put it through the sifter into a smaller spreadsheet. So what we'd like to do is, if you're comfortable, if we need to, we can answer any of your questions. The plan is now this would be on the council meeting agenda on the 28th of February to make the official award. And again, Dick set in on those, so you can ask him questions as well. The Aclara system, I did visit Dixie last week. They're in the process of doing the same thing. They've got about 1,100 meters deployed, and they spoke very positively with the experience with the company, as well as the quality of the products that they've received. So that was helpful to have somebody a little further down the road give us some assurance that they didn't regret the decision that they made. They're probably 6 months to a year ahead of us in the process.
So what is our time frame on starting, and where would it start?
As far as the time frame, if we would, as soon as we get the approval from the council, we'd work with the Aclara to get the final agreement, get them a purchase order. Then the next steps would be they'll meet with us and identify, quantities and all that kind of good stuff, and develop a schedule for meter delivery. We have to get the data collection units from them, get them physically installed, get the software set up. So as the meters get placed in the field, we can start interrogating them and integrate them into our billing system. So I would suspect, they were showing 20 weeks for meter delivery. So in reality, it'll probably be this fall is the earliest that we'd start seeing meters actually deployed. But we'd be doing some of the front end work, like say putting out the data collectors and getting all the software and everything set up and integrated to our billing system. So there'll be a period of time where we're actually running 2 different meter systems. So we're still going to be having to drive by to read the old meters until we get them changed out. What was your second question, Todd? As far as where we would deploy?
Yeah, if you kind of have an idea on where, and then how long you think it will be before everyone would be on this system. And then I guess on a follow-up, is that going to save us money down the road where we won't have to drive by and look at the meters or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 1 to 2 people a couple days a month that do the reading. And then on shut-off days, we basically have the whole department involved with that. So 1 day a month, you got, the whole department tied up on shut-offs. The read and rolls is an ongoing thing that we have to send people out. So I guess it would free people's time up to do other things. I don't know that you're going to see a bottom line change in the number of employees we have, but it would free up to not do some of those things that can be automated.
I would think that maybe somebody in the council will ask, do we have an estimate of how many man hours that'll say? I mean, you can do a little calculation probably.
Yeah,
and
we
get
could.
a rough idea. May not be a bad idea
That's a good point.
to do that, because
I mean,
though he's not in here right now, I know somebody that'll ask that question.
but yeah, we certainly could come up with a
I mean, it's got to be
estimate.
a substantial.
Yeah, and it's not going to be the sole justification for
No.
doing it, but there will be an economic help on that. As far as where we deploy and how we, certainly once we get the system up to where they can read meters, any first and foremost would be any new meters going out would be the new system. And then, to be honest, we have a list of probably 50 or 60 that are frequent on the shut-off list. They'd probably be some of the first ones. And then we'd probably just pick geographic area and start working through. And overall, we're estimating about a 2-year, and that's about 120 meters a week to get through our roughly 12,000 meters.
Okay, thanks.
So again, we can accelerate that if people want, but it will cost more from the standpoint we'd have to bring the outside people in to do it.
So probably places like apartment complexes
Could be.
are going to get changed out first, because you'll have a couple of people changing in a month, so you might as well go out and just.
Yeah, that'll be the easy low-hanging fruit. There are parts, particularly in the older part of town, that some of the meter bases are going to be 30, 40 years old. So we fully expect that there'll be some issues there that we're going to have to be prepared for with new jaw kits and things like that, just because of the age.
How does that get handled? What if they've got a meter? Does this box fit all the meters that we've got? Or are they going to have to replace?
It'll look just like the meter that's on your house now. You wouldn't even.
So we're not talking replacing boxes on people's houses and stuff. It's going to fit
Just the meters.
all of that.
Just when you physically pull it out, if it's been sitting there 20 or 30 years, and
If it comes easy or
The
Yeah,
jaws
comes
fall
out.
off with
or sometimes they'll have a bad connection and it'll actually welded the stab on the meter, and so it'll be those.
is that cost going to go back on the homeowner, or is that going to be part of our installation
Technically,
costs?
the meter socket's theirs, and what, in fact, I asked a couple of people what they've done, and some of them had like an electrician on standby in case it was too severe, that we could call them quickly to get it changed out. I don't anticipate that being super common, but I know there's some areas that have pedestals that are rusted off. And so there are some of those that we may have to pre-work with the homeowner to get that changed out.
So the cost would fall on the homeowners.
Yeah.
Side of things.
I mean, if it's a simple jaw change or something like that, but
it could be
if their pedestal's rusted off,
It's a
there's a
safety
problem
issue.
waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So, but the pedestal and the main panel is the homeowner's. So this will just, like I say, accelerate or bring that to the forefront when you physically go pull the meter. If that makes sense.
So on the e-portal, I know I keep up with my water on an e-portal. Is it going to be the same system?
It won't
prefer
be
to
the
have-
same system, it's a different brand.
Okay,
The supplier of the water system does not do electric meters.
okay. So the app's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it sounds like the water
far as
is
they're somewhere-
completely unique.
Yeah.
And
I can't remember the name of it.
but nobody recognized it. All these guys that made the presentation, they look in their notes.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there would be two different ones, but it would have, somewhat similar information and fill, I would
And
suspect.
it's nice to be able to have that information in somewhat real time to be able to monitor it. This will be really nice for electric, I think. I think anybody thinks like me, I'm excited about that aspect of it.
And I know the feedback on the
for
water
consumers.
AMI's been terrific from customers in general. From what I've heard, the council, and so I think I don't have any reason to believe that the council wouldn't be very supportive, partly because of their good experience with the water AMI.
Yeah, my water, I actually had a toilet still that wasn't working properly, so I was losing water and got notified of that. And that was a great thing. So I really appreciated the water.
I had the same thing happen. It was nice to have that notification to be able to kind of cut it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Power leaks usually result in smoke, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you could, if you're monitoring it, I mean, it's happened, we had one customer once call with a high bill complaint, and they said, we just had our AC serviced. Well, the service guy had put in a temporary jumper on their contactor for their compressor and forgot to take it off. And so their compressor had been running 24/7 since they had left. And fortunately for that customer, the HVAC guy was really good and actually paid them and said it was our fault. So it would, hopefully you could notice that before it went a whole month. Say, well, why did yesterday I used 100 kilowatt hours and today I'm at 200 or 300? So, and if I remember correctly, they can set some of those parameters that would give their own alarms. Say, hey, you're using a bunch today, or you've reached this level, with like our tiered system. Okay, you're just starting to move into the next higher block. At least be aware of what you're doing. So.
I don't have any other questions.
I do still.
Okay.
One, the installation. Part of me thinks that, yeah, you love to save that money and have our guys do it, but I'm concerned that one, even if they're to get through 100 houses a week, how long is that going to take to get through the whole city?
It's about 120 a week for a 2-year period.
For 2 years, whereas if these guys came in and did it themselves, what kind of time frame are they talking? Are we still talking the same 2-year
6 to 8
period?
months.
6 to 8 months if they did it?
And then it also doubles our budget in that same. So then you have to do the 2 million instead of spreading it over 2 years. You got to come up with that at a shorter period. So
And that was my next
budgeting
question to that side of it. Okay.
Because some of the setting up the system is going to be an upfront, but the purchase of the meters, I anticipate.
We can order half of the meters this year, half of the meters next year as we need them and stuff.
Yeah. And I think we can see how that's going, and we can pivot if we decide, hey, this isn't working like we want or isn't meeting our needs. We can still bring those in to do some of that. So.
The other concern I do have, here we are, we're going to say, hey, we're adding a new system. And if there is those situations where the home, something breaks and we're forcing those costs onto the homeowners where it's not, if that was the case, why can't they not opt out? And I know the reason is overall we need to be the whole system, but how can we go in and say, hey, sorry, you've got now an extra $1,000 bill for electrical costs that we caused?
Well,
and I don't think, I'm just throwing numbers to that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that we caused it. They didn't maintain their equipment. it's been sitting in the ground for 30, 40 years and metal
And-
rust.
And it's not going to be every house. It's going to be the 3 people in town that it happens to.
Right, and I think we can be sensitive to that and, you know, work through those situations.
I would like us to be very sensitive to that if possible. Cause you're right. But it's going to be those families that can't handle it. But that's going to be a huge,
And we can maybe
trial
figure
to
out
them.
ways to work. I mean, we can figure out ways to work.
and then we'll have to do the case by case. My last question, I think, is, as far as systems, we're going to go down this path. Is this a system that's going to be, I mean, are we thinking 20 years on this, 5 years, and we're going to have to find something else? Do we have an idea of that?
They've committed in what they've indicated. They'll backward compatible everything for a minimum of 20 years. So, and to be honest, the newer electronic meters, and it's not just these, but the ones we've been using, they're not like the old mechanicals that would sit there for 40 years and do its thing. That's just the way it is in our sun, and it's a pretty harsh environment. You know, they're on the south side of the house. And so I expected a 20 to 30 year lifespan on the equipment.
And the company that's offering this is using the same they're the old GE meter, right?
They
So,
acquired
I mean,
the
you're
GE,
talking an old heritage.
And the parent company, if you will, is Hubble,
Yeah,
which is one of the larger electrical.
been around for over 100 years.
Yeah, so it's not Fred and Joe's meter system on the side. I mean, they're one of the larger electrical suppliers. But that definitely is a concern, because I said many times, it's kind of like a marriage. It's you're committed, and it's real difficult to get out and real expensive. So that's a good analogy. Hey, we're coming up on 40, so.
So are there methods of kind of giving a heads up in that case and warning people that
I
we're
mean,
not
the
anticipating
crews know
anything,
where
any cost to
some of the
consumer
problem
unless there's
areas
something?
potentially are. I mean, they're not unaware of it.
Well, one of the things I like about having our own people do it is you may not be aware that there's a problem. The homeowner may not be aware
Oh
there's
yeah,
a problem.
I mean, that's true.
But, you know, having the meter reader come by the street and take a reading is one thing, but having somebody, when you're getting ready to change out a meter physically, you look at it and you're seeing, oh my gosh, there's an issue. I mean, we could be saving people a tragedy by looking at their equipment and saying, whoa.
It's time.
And we've already talked about, like, for the mobile home parks, having a few pedestals in stock, you know, that we'd have them. So as far as the ultimate cost, you know, we'll work that out, but you don't want to pull them without power and then say, oh, good luck, go find somebody. That's not the plan. And we've had those discussions in-house. So now, if we bring in an outside contractor, they're going to pull and go, huh, you got a problem. They're going to move on to the next one, and then we'd be chasing behind, cleaning all that up. So I think that's one of the other advantages. If those problems arise, we can deal with them on the fly as they're happening and get them corrected as quickly as possible. So that should be by far the exception, not the norm, but it's going to happen in a few locations. So. Good questions.
Any other questions? No? Recommendation?
Well, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the new AMI system to the city council and let them vote on it.
I'll second.
Dick first, Mark did the second. Dick, would you start us on a vote?
Saunders, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Dinsmore, aye.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting project to get through. I think when we get done, it's gonna be really beneficial to the customers, so, and to the department as well. I think there'll be a lot of good information. And you even think about things like EVs. If you know there's an EV there, you're gonna have a nice profile on what's going on, and it's gonna,
I
Give
just
us
thought of
real
something
good-
I want to ask as we,
oh, you already approved it.
I know, this is, so with that, obviously, I mean, we always kind of have some projects every year that this obviously is one of our projects for the next 2 years, as far as infrastructure and stuff. Any other major things that you're thinking along the lines that are going to kind of go along with this too?
The next big projects will be the Grapevine substation, which will be up by exit 13. In fact, we'll talk about that here in a minute. And then the transmission lines that extend from the current system to that.
Okay.
So those are the two major projects. And again, a decent portion of those, I anticipate, we contract those out, the contractors. Our crews aren't going to want to do the foundations and those kind of things in the substation. But like at Main Street, we did the cabling and the relay wiring and stuff like that. So we'll just look at that.
Okay. All righty, then on to item number 4, regular business operations report and generation update.
Okay, we'll go through this fairly quick. There's not too much earth shattering. We ordered some polymer insulators. We talked last month with some of those porcelain ones that get the birds doing their business on top and getting those replaced. We have roughly 100 of those still on the system. We placed an order for those and they're a year out. So supply chain issues continue to be a challenge. The Grapevine sub that we just mentioned, last word I got, it's real common now to have transformers out 2 years. So it's which used to be 6 to 8 months. So it really makes it difficult to budget and to plan and to manage all that. So speaking of budgets, we're in the middle of starting our city fiscal year 2025 budget. Jeremy tells me it's got to be in by Friday, at least the first draft. I'm doing my best. I'm getting close. So for January, the peak load was just under 20 megawatts, which was about a megawatt higher than the previous 2 Januaries. Had a little bit of a cold snap in there, so I think that contributed to part of it. Growth, probably part of it as well. There was actually 3 days, which was a first for us, that we ran one of our generators in January because prices spiked up to $250 to $300 a megawatt hour. And we were able to generate around 110 with the gas we were able to get. It was just 3 days, fairly short runs and only 1 unit, but we do have that capability, and Jake and Tyler watch that pretty close to see if there's opportunities. But I think that's the first January run we've had since the plant was put in. So some of the major projects that the crews have been working on is, you probably didn't notice, but there's They took out one steel pole. This is part of the interchange project just north of Buena Vista on Main Street. And we set 2 new poles and took one out because the new road went right through where that pole was. And so we set a pole basically on either side of where the new road will go through. And due to the weight and heights, we had to have Roosh come in and help set those. And this was the old pole that they took out. We have a slurry backfill around those. Sunrock came and helped dig it out, and you can see the slurry broken off there. But it took quite a bit of effort to get that out, and that's a pretty big track hole that they had there to do that. And kind of a cousin to that, and I think, well, Todd and Mark would have been both affected by when the Sunrock contractor dug into our cable. Yeah. In fact, I was having my monthly meeting with Jeremy sitting in his office, and like, boom. He goes, "Do you need to go?" I said, "Yeah." So. Yeah. So this is just what happens. And I guess fortunately for us, you can see it was blue staked, and they just didn't follow what they're supposed to do. So we're working on that and do a build. So that's why the lights went out that time. This has all been since repaired. It damaged 2 of the 3 cables. It damaged 3 conduits. One of them was a spare, and damaged 2 cables, and so we had to replace those. On the Grapevine substation and Trailhead, the pre-construction meeting's Thursday. That's right. Thursday. Yeah, and do you have an idea when's that's supposed to be done?
150 days.
Okay. So, yeah. So at the end of that project, we'll have some conduit in the ground. We'll have a substation site with the block fence around it. So that project's going to take a while to get through, but when you see the amount of work that will be done up there, it'll be a great trailhead for the city and good site for us. Kind of pushes out of sight, out of mind, but that's okay. So that work we'll actually start seeing equipment up there. You probably noticed tree trimmers, primarily in the downtown area. That's where most of the overhead is, where the tree trimming occurs. They're probably just a little over halfway through. I think Wayne told me today they have estimated about 4 more weeks, and then we'll be through that process. The crews took down the Christmas tree and other decorations. In January, we had 6 applications for solar permits. And then I've got the comments back from Thad and Jeremy on the pole attachment, and I've got the information in the UFS to do their final calculation. So I'm hoping to take all those pieces and get that in a draft form that we can bring it to you next month, would be my goal. And that's the importance of that's probably accelerated because CenturyLink has submitted a request for 160 poles to add attachments to. And so we're in the process of looking through their analysis and that kind of fun stuff. But this will be an opportunity to say, well, we need to have this agreement in place before we allow you to do that. Unfortunately for I guess since the city's acquired the system, there hasn't been a formal agreement with TDS or CenturyLink, which goes back to Mountain Bell and all that. So we hope to bring that to you in March, and then it would move on to the city council as well. There was also about a 2-second outage that occurred our supply to the west side of the system. This is a voltage transformer over at the Mill Creek substation owned by UMPS. This is where our breaker is that supplies the city. And you can see it kind of looks like somebody took a nibble out of the side of this. It's not supposed to be that way. And there's the piece that blew out. And that's probably the best picture of it. Fortunately for us, when it did it, it actually kind of blew itself clear. So the fault happened, it blew, and when the transmission line reclosed, it held. And so that's why it was only about a 1.5 seconds, under 2-second outage. And then St. George called, who does the maintenance for UAMPS, and we were able to switch to a different source to be able to take this out of service. And you can see in this picture that this was after they were done. They've cut the lead that goes to that off. And we've got a temporary workaround. There's another VT about 30, 40 feet away, and they've got a temporary jumper between them. So it just failed. Yeah, and it's probably in the 30-year range. And there's really no way to out-predict that. See you on Wayne's. Again, the dig-in was the major outage, and that lasted about 25 minutes. Took us to the good news. They called and said, we hit your line. So we knew exactly where it was pretty quick, and that always helps. Any questions on the local system, or we can move on to the US?
When we bury a line, electrical lines like that, and they're obviously in conduits, isn't there a tape or something that goes above it that the contractor has to dig through before he hits the?
You mean this tape?
Oh, the one that's broken up there. Okay.
So yes.
Oh my God.
And in fairness to them, we bored under the freeway, and this was about right where the boring machine was, and so the conduits were on a pretty steep dive, and where they did the excavation, it just kind of clipped the edge. So, but again, you're supposed to not use mechanical means until you find it, and then so. But yes, there is warning tape. On to UAMPS. UAMPS is also in the middle of their budget process. Their fiscal year starts in April 1st. So that process is well underway. We probably will approve that at March's meetings. One thing to note for our Power Board meeting in March is Mason Baker, the CEO of UAMPS, is going to come, and we'll make a presentation of kind of where UAMPS is at, how he sees some of the future resources, the challenges of the UAMPS members have. So if we can, I'd encourage you, if we can have everybody here in person, I think it'll be good for you to meet Mason. And then we've also invited the city council to come as well for the same reason. So if you have questions ahead of time, email them to me, and then I'll forward to him and just say, hey, I'd like you to address this.
Are we going to make sure we stay within a 2-hour time frame? That is caucus night. So we will want to be out of here before 7.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can do it. That'll be the primary one, and then possibly the pole attachment.
Okay. I was looking at the calendar and realized that one, and yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. But yeah, I think, he'll probably take a half hour or so, would be my guess. And most of it will probably depend on the questions he gets, how long that may go. For this upcoming summer, I think I reported last month that we bought 3 megawatts through Bountiful from the IPP plant, which is a good resource for the summer period. We've also turned in, actually just today, a small purchase for 2 megawatts the second half of the year for high and low load. And then an interesting one that hopefully everything will still come together. They call it a super peak. Normally for a high load, we have to buy from 8 in the morning till about 11 at night. And the problem we have right now, particularly with our solar projects coming on, we really don't need it from 8 till about 1 o'clock. And so if we have to buy that big block, we have to buy it at a higher price and sell it at a lower price. And so we approached UMPS to see if they could find a super peak, which is basically 8 hours that's over the higher period. And they were able to find someone willing to do that. That's pretty unusual. It's kind of pricey, to be frank, but I think overall it'll still give us the security that we have that, and it'll provide a known price going into the summer on that. So hopefully that should come together by the end of the week, and we'll know what those are. But like I say, it's a bit on the pricey side, but we looked at it versus the sale of what we don't need, and I think we'll still come out quite a bit in the positive to do. Pay more for less, if you will, versus stuff we don't need. So that's again, an ongoing challenge. On our Central St. George project, there's really not much going on there, other than there's a couple right-of-way issues with some developers out in Hurricane that we're working with. Nothing too major. Payson project's running well. Vail's running well. It was interesting when they had the cold spell in January, they were trying to send all the gas they could east, and so they shut the compressors down in Vail. So if there's no compressors, we don't have any waste heat. So there was about a week to 10 days in there that the plant didn't run much because Kern River had shut their compressors down to try to coax gas to go the other way. The Steel Solar Project, the first phase is supposed to be on by the end of this month, and so we'll get a little over 1 megawatt starting in March, basically. We might get some test energy before then, and then the bigger 5.7 megawatts will come on in May. So we're very interested in to see how that fits and how that plant performs this upcoming summer. I think it'll be really good, but it does create some challenges. Like I mentioned, the solar doesn't match our load profile. It's kind of shifted about 4 or 5 hours, so it's figuring out ways to mitigate some of those negative impacts. So on future resources, they awarded a consulting engineer to assist in evaluating some natural gas sites. They have to turn that around pretty quick to get on Pacific Corps' study process that's needed for large generators. And so mid-May, they have to at least make applications. They're hoping to narrow it down to 2 sites and make those applications so we can get in line for those. The wind projects, of course, I guess you expect that in Wyoming and Idaho in the winter. The wind was blowing, so they actually did pretty well the last month with capacity factors a little over 30%. So that's good for a wind project. So again, you expect that more than in the summer. So the CFPP is still just in a final wind down stage, and really not a whole lot going on there. So, and that's all I got for UMPS. There is a tool, they call it the governing body toolkit, this Thursday at 4 o'clock here at this room. If you're able to make it, that would be great. It's targeted primarily for new people that aren't familiar with UMPS at all, but usually you can pick up some nuggets. And again, another opportunity to ask some questions. So we'll probably have people from Santa Clara, Hurricane, St. George potentially, and depending on where Parowan, they may go to Fillmore for their meeting or come down south, depending on. So there'll be some other governing board members that will be here Thursday. So, and they have something to eat of some form, if that makes a big sway, and get you a donut or a sandwich or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you're able to, great. If not, the more important one of the two, I would say, is next power board meeting. And I didn't say that because Jackie will say, I didn't want to say her meeting isn't important, but it'll be a little more one-on-one with Mason next month. So,
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll be glad to make that. I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
It's Dick first, Mark second. Dick, will you start us on the vote?
Saunders, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, till next month, please mark your calendars, March 6th. Be here in person if possible.
Thank you.
Take care, Don.